All right, so this session will be recorded. You do have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have anything, any questions you'd like to ask, please save that to the end or use the chat feature. And with that, we're going to get things started with Jim. So Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everybody. And taking a look at the list of participants, there's many there that I know that I've worked with over the years, and it's good to see you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about OSHA inspections, and many of you have been involved in an OSHA inspection or in an informal conference. And the last thing that we want, or the last thing that we need, is to get cited by OSHA. It impacts us very seriously. OSHA is most certainly not the enemy. They set the rules. And when you get right down to it, being OSHA compliant on any job site is relatively easy for you to do. When I would go to a site as a safety coordinator for Local 98 and somebody would tell me that their job site was 100% OSHA compliant, I would smile and look at them and just say, good, because that's the least that you could do. Remember, OSHA requirements are the minimum. I'm excited to be doing some things with the chapter through Flintlock Technical Services on a consulting basis. At the end of the presentation, you'll get my phone number, my email address, and anything that I can do for you, just reach out to me. If you've got a job on a Saturday and there's an issue there, reach out to me immediately, because if OSHA does show up on a site, you have to react immediately. Okay, so let's just take a quick look, and this is going to be, I'm going to move pretty quickly here through the material because I want to make sure that we cover all of it. Take some notes. If you have any questions at the end, we'll get into them. One of the things that you can do is you can email me a question or give me a call. But every good presentation has to start with a set of objectives. And our first objective is to understand that job site safety is not a priority. It's a core value. Okay, we're going to go over some basic requirements, what applies and where, and we're just going to do that from 10,000 feet. We'll talk about the types of OSHA citations that can be handed out, what the difference is between them, and what they mean if you get a letter in the mail saying that you're being cited and it says other than serious, willful, or repeat. We'll talk about the dollar value of the fines. And, that's not really an issue. When you get an OSHA fine, it goes against your name, and that is readily available. It's public information through establishment search on their website. I can show you how to do that, and it impacts your ability to get work. And it's something that you should know how to do, because if, for example, you're going to hire a rigger, you want to take a look at their OSHA history, and you can do it in seconds online. If you pick a company that has a significant negative OSHA history and something goes wrong, well, it's a problem. It's a problem for you because you hired a bad character. And do you know how to handle an OSHA inspection? And it's not just you. It's not just the people on this call. The key here is the frontline foreman. Does the frontline foreman know what to do if OSHA shows up? So this is something that if you guys want, we can put together and package it up for foremen and make sure that they get this same message. And it's not just foreman. The project manager needs to know. The owner needs to know. Everybody needs to understand what we need to do with respect to OSHA compliance, because that's the easiest way to stay ahead of this, but what to do if and when OSHA shows up. The focus has to be on being proactive. We have to be out in front, because when we're proactive with safety, we're not going to get the recordable injuries. We're not going to end up with an OSHA citation. We will get out in front of all of that. But for most of you, at some point in time, OSHA is going to show up for some reason on a job site, and you just need to understand what to do. And we will also talk about what not to do, because they're both equally important. Okay, what to do and what not to do. And what do you do immediately after the inspection? You know, and it's going to be taking notes, pictures, etc. But if it's the foreman and the safety director and the steward, immediately after, they have to, you know, stop what they're doing, take a look at what just went down and what do we need to do. And one of the keys there is to identify potential citations. If you think you're going to get cited, there's steps that you need to take, proactive steps, and they have to be taken immediately. You can't say, well, you know what, we'll wait a couple of weeks. Let's wait and see if we get this in the mail. No, you have to react the next day. Safety is a shared responsibility. And it has to be, you know, a culture on the job. It's employers and employees. So, you know, when we have those toolbox talks, when, you know, when we're interacting with employees, if there are concerns, we need to make sure that we're getting it done. And everybody is involved, from the owner to the project manager, the superintendent, frontline foreman, safety professionals. Everyone is responsible. And that's the toughest job for a contractor in construction, is the safety professional, but their job is incredibly important. So safety has to be a core value, and we have to get that across to employees. You see, you know, many of us say, oh, safety is our number one priority. Priorities change, you know, there's schedule changes, pressures to get the job done, and we compromise safety. You know, you've got a morning routine. It may involve coffee, breakfast, watching the news. If you wake up late and you got a big meeting, all those priorities go out the window and you're out the door on the way to that meeting. One of the most important roles here is the frontline foreman. He or she plays the most significant role in everything that we're talking about here today. Because when in Rome, our members will do as the Romans. If you've got a foreman that is extremely safety conscious and he's proactive and he makes sure that everybody's dotting their I's and crossing their T's, you can see it when you walk on the job. If he doesn't or she doesn't push safety, when in Rome, our members will do as the Romans. We have to lead by example, and safety has to be a core value, because leadership isn't an act, it's not a position. It's an action. So the frontline foreman and all of your supervisory staff play a really, really big role here. So the best way for us to prepare for an OSHA job site visit is naturally to be fully compliant with all OSHA regulations. And as I mentioned earlier, it is not difficult to be fully compliant with all OSHA regulations. It's easy to do. All right, so on a job site today, you've got probably dozens of them. What OSHA requirements apply? What OSHA standards are applied? Well, I can't tell you that. I would have to ask questions. I would have to say, what are you doing? Now, there's letters of interpretation between to discern when the construction standard 1926 applies and the general industry standard 1910 applies. And those letters of interpretation all come down to one word. If what you're doing is an improvement, you're working under the construction standard. So if we go into a building and we replace some ballasts, that's not an improvement, that's a repair. We're working under the 1910 standard. When it comes to electrical, subpart S is far more prescriptive than subpart K in 1926. But if we go into that same building to replace 100 ballasts with more energy efficient ballasts, well, now that is an improvement, and the construction standard in 1926 will apply. So repair, replacement of like kind, that's not an improvement. All right, you'd be under the 1910 standard when you're repairing or replacing. So on many jobs, you know, you could have 30 electrical workers on that job. 20 of them could be working underneath the construction standard and 10 of them under the general maintenance, the general industry standard. So anytime there's improvement, it's going to be construction, and 1910, the general industry standard, will apply to other tasks. So again, it is likely on every job, you've got people working under 1910 and 1926. It all comes down to what is that individual doing? You could have two people on the same floor, one working under 1910, the other one working under the 1926 standard. And this question comes up all of the time when somebody sees, for example, a potential citation. They say, hey, they cited us with 1910. That doesn't apply. It was construction. It all comes down to the activity. What was that individual doing? We have to be prepared for a potential OSHA visit. You don't know when OSHA is going to show up. They don't call you on February 3rd and say, hey, Monday, February 14, Valentine's Day, we're going to be on your job site. So get ready. But OSHA operates in two modes. I mean, and this is, all of their operations, they either work in a partnership mode or a punishment mode. So years ago, we used to have a partnership with the Philadelphia area OSHA office, and it was NECA, IBEW, and OSHA. And that partnership lasted for about 8 or 10 years. And then OSHA actually got out of partnerships, and they put their primary focus into their VPP program. So we see VPP job sites and typically in the Children's Hospital area down there, and all of the big meds and eds. That's where you're going to see a VPP site, and they will partner with the site. The vast majority of our work, they don't work in a partnership mode. It's a punishment mode. If OSHA shows up on the site and they see, potential citations, they operate in a punishment mode, and it's citations and it's penalties. And again, we have to remember that the core value here, we're talking about, dealing with OSHA, but from 10,000 feet, we are all, on the same page in that our core value is that everybody goes home every day without injury and without exposure. That is always our core value. And again, being proactive is going to eliminate potential OSHA citations, and that starts at the top. It's the owner, the project manager, the superintendent, the foreman. The foreman can't put employees onto a working deck, the 10th floor, until the foreman goes up and makes sure that the fall protection, exterior fall protection, is 100%, that there are no open holes. What is a hole? Anything 2 inches or larger in its least dimension. So this is where all of the foremen play a big role. All right, OSHA fines. There are, other than serious fines, that OSHA will deal with. For example, they may fine you because there weren't enough toilets on the job. And that may have been your responsibility because you're a prime on the job, or you're the only contractor on the job, and there was a complaint and there wasn't enough toilets on the job. You're going to get an other than serious citation, because that type of fine has a direct relationship to job safety and health, but is not serious in nature. And contractors will say, well, wait a minute, how can they fine me for the toilets on the job when the general contractor's responsibility, or the plumber? That comes down to rules of construction in 1926-16. They can cite the carpenter for lack of lighting in an area when the electrician contractually was responsible to provide temporary power and light. But maybe you didn't contract to do it in the auditorium, and the carpenters were working in there in the dark. They're going to get cited for not having the required lighting. A serious citation is something that we don't want. We do not want a serious citation against our name. It is like getting a DWI, driving while intoxicated. Is that going to impact your life? You better believe it. Is it going to impact your insurance costs? you better believe it. It's something that we don't want to happen. But a serious citation is a hazard that could cause an accident or illness that would most likely result in death or serious physical harm unless the employer did not know or could not have known of the violation. So for example, if a plane were to fall out of the sky and land on the job, you could not have known that that was going to happen. But there are hazards on every job site that we can see. Okay. And if we're working, for example, on a floor, this is a big one. We've got 6 electricians working on the 10th floor, and there's holes everywhere because the tin knocker is opening those things up. Somebody moves the ladder goes in there and they fall, serious injury. We're going to end up with a serious citation, one that we're not going to be able to fight. Then there's repeated violations, which means you've been cited previously for the same section, same hazard, or something that's substantially similar, okay, for a serious violation within the past 5 years. Then there's willful, okay? That's a violation in which the employer either knowingly failed to comply with a legal requirement, so that's purposeful disregard, or acted with plain indifference to employee safety. And I saw that on one job site. It was the St. James project, downtown Philadelphia, and it was a concrete firm that just had complete disregard for fall protection and had been previously cited serious citations. It was brought to their attention, it was documented, and OSHA eventually showed up and they were cited and cited hard. All right, in 2021, this is what your fine structure looked like. Serious, other than serious, or posting, they all start at over $13,000. Failure to abate, the same. If you get a willful or repeated violation, it jumps to $136,532. Every year they get changed. Okay, so in 2022, we are now working under a new fee structure. So it's $14,500 for a serious, and then if that in that 5-year window, you get another citation that is the same or substantially similar, now you get a willful or repeated at $145,000 per violation. And that was effective January 15th of this year, 2022. All right, so now this is an example here, but this is an example that I lived through, and it happened right down near 17th and the Parkway. So I get a phone call. One of our guys was shocked, and he had been taken to the hospital. So what had happened there was the employee falls from a ladder. He was shocked. He was working in an elevator lobby. There was an emergency circuit there, 277. They didn't do their homework. The frontline foreman didn't do any of the things that he should have done. And he hits the ground. There's a GC there. They call 911. Paramedics take the employee to the ER. And when I get there, I told the foreman, and now at this point, the owner's there. I told them, I said, look, OSHA's coming. OSHA's coming. And they looked at me and they said, Jimmy, you didn't call OSHA, did you? I said, no, I didn't call OSHA, but the paramedics will. There's a deal in the city of Philadelphia, and it has made its way statewide in Pennsylvania. If paramedics come to a job site, or first responders, firemen, whatever, and there is an incident and it's industrial or construction, they call the local OSHA office. So they're going to be coming. So if paramedics come to the site, just know that OSHA is on their way. So let's look at it this way. The employee fell due to a shock. OSHA shows up. Will citations be applied? They sure will. All right. There was exposure. 1926-416A1. If there wasn't exposure, he wouldn't have got shocked. Wasn't wearing PPE. If he was wearing PPE as required in 95, we wouldn't have had an injury. And then they're going to go to that individual in the hospital. OSHA's going to go in and talk to them. and they're going to ask if you trained them on that exposure. And if you didn't, now you're going to be fined for 1926-21. So let's just do the math in 2022. 3 serious citations, it's $43,000, $43,506. That looks like a big number. It's not. That's chump change. What happens now, though, is you've got 3 serious citations against your name. General contractors are going to look at that. You're not going to be very appealing when they choose a contractor for the next job. Once you settle with those 3 serious citations, you open a 5-year window. If you get anything that is the same, any citation within the next 5 years that is the same or substantially similar, it's going to be repeat or willful. Now look at the math. It's $435,081. And even if you could pay that, you're out of business, because nobody is going to hire you if you've got a repeat or a willful next to your name. It's just not going to happen. You are out of business. There is another, there's something that a lot of people don't know about or have never heard of, and it's actually a tool. It's called a phone fax complaint. All right. And it's typically only initiated by somebody that really knows how OSHA works, how they operate. It can be an effective job site safety tool. OSHA will call the job. They're not going to visit the job. You can't use this for imminent danger. So for example, if you had a job where the GC was responsible for the toilets and they obviously weren't doing their job, you could have somebody file a phone fax complaint. What happens is OSHA contacts them. They get 5 to 10 business days, and they have to respond comprehensively. And what ends up happening is, you get the number of porta pots or toilets that should have been there. So why will OSHA come to a job site? There's only a few reasons where they will show up on a job. Employee complaints is the most common. It can be any trade. It doesn't have to be an electrician. It could be somebody driving by that job. They could be driving by that job. They didn't get it. They're upset. They look up. They see employees working from heights over 6 feet. And if it's over 30 feet, OSHA considers it imminent danger, and they make a phone call. That's called an employee complaint. It's the most common reason that we see OSHA on a job site. There's referrals, and a referral would be an incident or an accident that gets called in by the paramedics, for example. Another type of referral is when KYW says, hey, this just in, a crane fell at 21st and Walnut. And that happened years ago. It wasn't a crane, it was a high reach. So, nobody called OSHA right away, but OSHA hears that because they monitor KYW in their Philadelphia office. And they hear that this just in, they're on their way to 21st and Market. Programmed inspections are not common. What happens here is it's done through the University of Tennessee with the Dodge reports, and they pick big jobs. So if you're on a really big project in the state of Pennsylvania, it's likely, well, just know this, you were in that lottery for a programmed inspection. But when there is a programmed inspection, they actually call you and tell you that they're coming. Targeted inspections aren't that big. They typically target industries. So there was just another really big fire with a fertilizer plant. So I can tell you that OSHA right now is going to, be targeting all of those facilities all over the United States. OSHA has inspection priorities. If somebody calls and says, hey, people are working from a height of 30 feet, no fall protection, and at the very same time, they get a phone call that somebody died, they're not going to go to the job where somebody died. They can't save a life there. They're going to go to the imminent danger situation because there they can save a life. So in order of priority, imminent danger, serious injury, fatality. Next would be employee complaints, referrals. That's the 911. That is, KYW, etc. programmed and targeted. We talked about those Dodge reports, or an industry that has seen a lot of problems. They're going to focus in on that, and then follow up. In many cases, if OSHA has multiple citations on a job site, they will come out and follow up after those contractors contact OSHA and say, yes, we have abated those situations. We are now in compliance. So now OSHA shows up on a job site. Okay. What happens? The first thing that happens is they have to present their credentials. They have to prove to you and to everybody that they are OSHA employees. They have to have an opening conference. And in that conference, they have to tell you why they're there. So for example, they come there and they say, we're here because there's a complaint about holes on the 6th floor. Then at that point, you immediately have to, understand the scope of this inspection and say, you know what, do we have exposure? Do I have people on the 6th floor? If you've got people on the 6th floor, you got to get them off. And if there's holes on 7, 8, 9, and 10, and you've got people there, you got to get them out of there. OSHA will explain their walk around procedures, what they're going to do. You should have an employee representative. It's good to do. So grab the steward, okay? And on some inspections, the COSHO, the Compliance and Safety Health Officer, will want to interview employees. On other jobs, they may not. You can go online and read all about OSHA inspections, and some people will tell you demand a warrant. You don't want to demand a warrant because OSHA will get the warrant. But if you demand a warrant, then they're going to go as hard line as possible on that job and on you as they possibly can. So, the scope of the inspection, when they come and they tell you, we're here for holes on the 6th floor, that's important, okay? Because the walk around can be limited, and many people don't know this. The walk around can be limited to the scope of the inspection, all right? Because they will ask to walk the whole job, but it's your right, and it's the right of other employees to limit the walk around to the scope of the inspection. It could be a 15-story project. There's a problem on the 6th floor. They'll go there and then they'll say, hey, how about we start at the top and walk down? It's your right to say, no, we're going to get on the elevator and we're going to go down and have a closing conference. You don't have to walk them through the whole job. Keep in mind, if you walk OSHA through the whole job, any violations that are in plain sight, they will see and they will cite. So, and you can restrict, you can slow down that inspection until, for example, your safety director gets there. If it's a reasonable delay. So the foreman can say, hey, wait a minute, just got off the phone with my safety director. She's going to be here in 20 minutes. You can delay the inspection until that point, unless of course it's imminent danger. They're going to want to go right there, or at least make sure that there's nobody in that area. If it's for a complaint, you can request a copy of the complaint. Many people don't know that. Ask for a copy. It won't have a name on there, but it'll outline what the complaint was. Don't comment on the complaint. Don't suggest who made it. You may know who made it. It may be one of your employees. Don't say anything, okay? But what you need to do is address anybody in that area. And again, one of the biggest examples is holes in walking, working surfaces. We see that same citation again and again and again. If it is a complaint, okay, you got to remember that section 11C, it's called the whistleblower, protects anybody that makes a complaint. So don't engage in any discussions on who you think filed the complaint. And even if you are reasonably sure it was one of your employees, don't take any action against them, such as a layoff, because they could file 11C, be out of work for a year, and then you have to pay their wages and benefits for that year. The steward should be, part of that. And you only want 1 or 2 people. You don't want a whole crew. And you want to attend and listen. Don't volunteer information, just listen, and limit the scope of the inspection. Don't offer a tour, because anything in plain sight is going to be cited. They'll look for all the posters, injury, illness logs, et cetera. You got to make sure that all of that is done. They will ask about GFCI testing procedures and documentation. I was talking with Rob earlier. I'm going to finish up a document today and send it to him. He'll get it out to you that you could use for that. Take notes on the walk around. Everywhere the compliance officer goes, you take those notes. Write down every question that they ask. If they take a picture, you take a picture and tag those photographs. And keep in mind, their cameras and their video cameras are always recording. So if you're having a conversation with them, just know that you are being recorded. Don't try to stop an interview. If they want to talk to an employee, let them. All right. The employee can have the steward attend. And then afterwards, it's customary for you to say, hey, what were they asking you about? We just want to know. And if OSHA takes a picture of a potential problem, make sure you take similar pictures of similar situations where there was not a problem. All right. If they find something wrong, a bad GFCI, replace it immediately. It could be the difference between a serious and other than serious citation. So you got a missing guard or a lamp, a damaged extension cord, take care of it right away, immediately, in a safe manner. The COSHO has to have a closing conference. They'll discuss all alleged violations. Take comprehensive notes. Now, if there's any obvious mistakes that they made, all right, make them known and ask them to document it in their closing conference notes, but don't argue with them. Just say, you know what? I'm not so sure that's true. I just want that documented, and get your facts documented, but don't argue with them. That's not what we want to do. So at that point, you'll be able to make a determination if any of the alleged citations impact you. If there's a possibility that you're going to get a citation issued, you have to take immediate action. First, you have to repair, modify whatever was wrong and document it in writing. Then you have to take proactive steps immediately to prevent reoccurrence. It could include additional training that has to happen right away. Policies, procedures, toolbox talks. Get it all done right away. And this is, I'm going to close with this, but a Penn-Del-Jersey NECA contractor found himself in this position several years ago, and he called me. He said, Jim, I think I got a problem. I said, you sure do. His foreman took good notes and took pictures. And, once he called me, we were able to take action. Now, this isn't the equipment, but this is the violation. The COSHO wanted to open up all the temporary panel boards, and circuit breakers were missing. We didn't have identified blanks. That's a 1926-416 violation. It's a serious citation. And I knew that it was coming. The same thing happens if you put duct tape there. That is a serious citation, and you're going to get cited. So it did exist. We had exposed energized bus there. Okay. All you need to do is put blanks in there. Add a couple of circuit breakers in there. Fill the space. This was easy to fix, but they didn't do it. So we had a potential 416 violation. So what did we do? Okay. Days later, like 3 business days later, all of his foremen, not just from that job site, from every job site, were trained on temporary wiring. He implemented new policies that I helped him with, and he got that done. He implemented new toolbox talks that I helped him with. Lockout, tagout procedures were revised. Training was implemented. GFCI testing got documented. So he did get a citation. He requested an informal conference, and you always want to do that because you can get a penalty reduction, possible deletion, reclassification. There's a lot that can happen there. And at the informal conference, and I coached them on it, okay, the owner admitted that they were wrong. You can't deny the picture. The pictures are worth 1,000 words. So the picture already proved that fact. But the owner provided the area director with documentation of training, new policies, procedures, and toolbox talks, and said, hey, I had Jimmy Doward come in and get all this done. And the director even commented, he said, wait a minute, we were out there on a Thursday. The following Tuesday, you had all of your foremen trained? Like, you see, that's the kind of proactive step that you need to take to shield yourself from a serious citation. So the owner showed good faith, and that's what OSHA is interested in. They want to see a sincere, good faith, steps taken by the owner, and the owner agreed to pay. He said, look, I'll pay any fine. I'm just going to ask that you change it from serious to other than serious. The area director agreed. Okay. So what did we do? We still had to pay that fine, but it was an other than serious fine. And that 5-year window for a willful or a repeat citation was averted. We didn't have serious citations next to his name on the OSHA website. It didn't impact his ability to get work. So it was a major, major win. So we tried to hit this about 40 minutes, Rob. We're pretty close to it. We've got some time for questions, and we're here if and when you need us. There's my email address and my cell number. So please take them down so that if you ever have any questions on a job site, etc., you can get to us immediately. Rob?
All right, thanks, Jim. That was great. And you did it in just under 40 minutes, which was impressive. Let's open it up. Are there any questions from those on the call? You're welcome to unmute yourself or use the chat feature. All right, hearing none, I will be emailing out a follow-up survey to this session, and I'll have Jim's contact information there. The chapter's really glad we have Jim on board. He's an expert in the field, so we do recommend you take advantage of his services if you ever need any help. So definitely contact Jim. I just want to give a plug for our next industry hour. We're going to have that on February 17th with Josh Bone from Electri International. For those of you who don't know what Electri is, that's the research branch of NECA, and he's going to be talking about why it's time to embrace technology in construction. So we have a great session coming up. With that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.